Okay, here we go. A small group this morning. Let's see what happens as we go. Well, it's building. It is building. I'll wait for the. Okay, one more. Good. Okay, 13th of Kislev. Well, we're almost at the end. We're going to have to make a decision. I'm going to put out a poll here. There's a lot of people in this group. I remember last time I counted was 50-something people in this group. But we have a serious group of attendees. And I want to take a poll from everybody and see, and I'm going to go with whatever you guys say, which is, should we start this over again live? Or should we, if you want to know our group's methodology of looking at the Tanya and our viewpoint, you can go to YouTube and look at the ones we did last year. So think about that a little bit. But in any case, whether we do it again as a group or we do it alone, remember the goal here is to, as enunciated in the first part of Tanya, that our thoughts should permeate our hearts and our behaviors should actually change. And that's the birurim prati, geula pratis that we're working on all the time, and it needs a lot of work. 13 Kislev. My father said, Hasidus changes what exists. Alabai. It does. Like the Rabbi Akiva is water on the stone. It may be slow, but it penetrates. Hasidus penetrates. It uncovers the essence character, not just the manifestation of the character, but the essence of the person's character. The essence character, what is that, of the Jewish person, is beyond estimation and beyond assessment. For he is a part of God's essence, right? We are a part of God. Chelek elokah. So we're a part of his essence. And whoever lays hold of part of it, whoever try to grab an essence, the essence is as though he lays hold of it all, because essence has no differentiation. It's very counterintuitive. On one hand, because essence has no differentiation, when you get it as a whole, and then you have the job of letting it express itself in the various ways that are latent within it. On the other hand, you can't really get it because we've said this before, that this is the ayin from which everything comes. It's the no thing. It has no thingness to it. And so where is it? Well, it's there, and it's accessible, as he says, and one can lay hold of it. Just as the essence is unlimited, so is the part unlimited, because the essence has no parts. This is similar to tzitzis. Here's the mashal I've used lately. Tzitzis, the garment and the strings. The strings are the expression, right? They equal the number, they equated with number of mitzvahs, which are drawn down into numeration, into singularity and number. But the tzitzis have to be part of the klaf, of the body, the same material. And the body is the thing that you envelop yourself in. So this tzitzis itself is a model of the or makif, and in the context of our Yom Yom today, the untouchable, the ungraspable, being able to come down and flow into the graspable, into the unlimited, into the limited. So we'll be back to him. This is similar to tzitzis being on the corner of the same material as the corner of the garment. And he has parenthetically explains this, that the existence of the soul as an entity, because we say that the neshama is a chelek elokah, it's a part of God. It's a created entity. And that entity, created entity, that aspect of this, that way of looking at the soul, discrete from God's essence, is only because God created the soul to be a created thing, a created being. And Hasidus reveals the essence character of the soul. Halavai is there for the working on. So we'll work on it today, a little bit deeper into mitzvahs. Mitzvahs. It seems to be the subject of these whole last letters. Lessons in Tanya, page, starting essay 5 on page 356. So, before we start as usual, let me one dedicated to our that our learning should have the effect that he speaks about there, that the essence of who we are should permeate all of the expressions of who we are. And secondly, refuah shleimus. Who would like to? Yeah.
Yehudis Golda Bas Aliza Chana.
Yehudis Golda Bas Aliza Chana soll haben refuah shleima bekorev.
Amen.
Elka Rachel Bas Aliza. Tivia Chaya Bas Leah Masha.
Amen.
And Liba Malka Bas Gila Zelda.
Amen, amen, amen. Refuah shleima. Anybody else? Okay, this is 3
Sarah. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rivka
Sarah.
Rus Basara.
Rus Basara. Rus Basara. Okay. Rus Basara should have refuah shleima bekorev immediately. Page 318. Okay, a brief introduction. The Alter Rebbe in this section is speaking about why mitzvahs are so important, right? And in general, the mitzvahs are so important because they are the direct expression of God's will. His highest levels are enclosed in the lowest levels, in the things of mitzvahs, okay? And that includes both positive and negative. And when we do mitzvahs, positive ones, or refrain from things which are prohibited us, and we do that with passion, I'm using that as a general word for kavana, we do that with kavana, then, as the Alter Rebbe uses this metaphor that I love very much in first part of Tanya, then the bird, which is the deed of the mitzvah, the actuality, the body of the mitzvah, when it's done with ahava, love, and yira, awe and fear, it's done with kavana, it flies up. It flies up and it reaches into the deepest levels with the more kavana, the deepest levels into God, and it causes the arousal from below, creates an arousal from above. And with this, the darkness of this world is purified. That's called avodas habirurim. He also pointed out, and this is where we're going to focus today, that learning the halachas themselves, the halachas of the mitzvah, has the same effect. And now he's going in depth into the notion of the gewalt, the huge thing of learning halachas of the mitzvahs. Okay, here we go. He's going to those mitzvahs, those specific mitzvahs that we don't even find exist in a physical manner. And he's going to give an example. And not only they don't exist, but that it may be possible that they never ever existed. That meaning never were instantiated on the physical level. We'll see. And how much more so, and how much more so they won't be in the future either. Why, how much more so? Because we will see later, related to a question I think it was asked at the last question, will there be mitzvahs after Mashiach and after Techiyas HaMeisim? And if so, what will they be like? So he gives an example of this kind of mitzvah that is never ever occurred. Kamoi, Pirtei Dini Pigel. Pigel, we've explained before, and we'll just, he brought it up before, earlier. You have for instance, a korban, and the korban's meat is distributed in this particular korban amongst the kohanim, and it's meant to be eaten on a particular day, and the kohen intended a different day. His mind was focused on a different day. So his mistake of thinking, of intentionality, is called pigel. It's a mitzvah. He's transgressed a negative mitzvah, or he's transgressed a mitzvah by having that negative, that mistaken intentionality. About which, who knows about that, right? Where do you see it? Where is it? You don't see his intended intentionality. Just his thought is off the mark. So the question on the table is, how do these mitzvahs, which never have a material effect in the world even, right? How do they accomplish what all the things I said earlier that mitzvahs accomplish? This is known. Every forbidden thing in the world, meaning everything that God forbids up in the Torah, it has a root. The fact that it's prohibited is meaning there's a klippa, there's a shell over it, and that shell has a life force in godliness itself. The root and source of this chayim is in what we call klippas. Klippas noiga, or worse, klippas gimel klippas atameas. Shimlav came, it's a simple logic. In other words, at first it might seem astounding. What? God is all good and evil comes from him? That's why the Christian religion posited this whole idea of the devil being at war with Hashem. Two forces of evil, the force of light and the force of darkness, opposing each other, two heads, sort of Yaakov and Esau, right? One against the other. But we know that's not true. There's only one God. Everything emerges from the one God, right? And so if everything emerges from the singular one God, then even the darkness and even the negative comes from him. Sheim Lav came, because if it didn't come from him, God Yud Hava, he's the Yud, he's the singular point from which all Hava, all being comes, whether it's positive or negative. So if it weren't for that singular point emanating everything, then even the klippas couldn't exist. They would not be in existence at all, without the flow from the supernal levels of the singular God. Even if one does his hair, like I comb my hair this way, right? A little touch of vanity, I don't know, whatever you call it. Each of us have our own little things. It needs to be just right. This is the mashal that's given here. He combs his hair in a particular way, has some touch of a little touch of ego, let's say, and that little touch of ego is coming from the klippas noiga, and it's coming from the same singular God that gives us the positive mitzvahs and all of the openness of kedusha. Or other things like this, all of them, they all receive their life force, the klippas mamish, from the chambers of the klippas, as is written in the Zohar. Chambers of the klippas are empowered by God. Therefore, even the specific isurim, prohibited things, even those which are never going to come into existence, like our example of Pigo, they'll never come to the oilam hazeh agashmi, in this physical world. Nevertheless, nevertheless, they have an existence. They are extant in the spiritual chambers of klippas. And even the details of them, that may not be in existence. He going toyis v'shigagas. A person makes a mistake. He's counting sheep, he's counting cows, he's counting whatever, in order to give a donation or whatever it is, and he makes a mistake. And he counts the ninth one, he makes a mistake in numbering. So that shigaga, that mistake, which you don't make a mistake deliberately by definition, right? Is a mistake. This klippa shora alzeh. The klippa is what's on top on it. That's why you've made a mistake. It's totally not willful, right? It's a mistake. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, right? I didn't mean to count it number 8 when it should be number 7. But that mistake is coming from, that's not Kedusha, because if it was Kedusha and you were aligned with Kedusha, you wouldn't be making this mistake. There can be a lot of cases like this, which are klippas, which don't have any existence in the chambers of Klippa. Now, we just said they do. So what does he mean by this? So here we have an introduction, we've introduced a note from the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, nearly, this is the Alter Rebbe says, it doesn't have any existence in the chambers of Kedusha. He said it could be, meaning it's not clear. So this is what he's saying. It could be because it's not clear to me, therefore I made a mistake, but not I made a mistake deliberately. So it's coming from the side of Klippa. Shiga's boys minoiga, but it's coming from Klippas noiga, not from the Gimel Klippas of Tameas. Gimel Klippas of Tameas is when you do something deliberately contradicting what Hashem wanted. Therefore, even though this is not deliberate, it's only b'shoigeg, it's only, forgetfulness, right, is coming from a klippa because it's a shadow over Kedusha. So even though it doesn't necessarily come into deed, and even though it's not, that's the pigel, and even though it's not deliberate, so it's part of the scheme of godliness, which comes below. It's part of the Chochmah Allah. It's the abbreviation here. The supernal Chochmah, which came down in this particular detail, the pigul, which never existed, or the mistake, which is not deliberate. All of those and the inner meaning of those and the halachas of those things all came down to Moshe Rabbeinu b'Sinai. K'maimer, as it says, there's a maimer that's from Chachamim that says, "Ma shekol talmid vosik la'osed l'chadish." Anything which a Talmud in later generations is going to discover, nitla, the finishes like this: nitla Moshe Rabbeinu, was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. The whole pirtei ha'avos and all the specific questions that Rav Yirmiyah, he asked a lot of very detailed questions, even on things which are way, maybe almost impossible to have ever happened. And he gives one of them in one word. The korch is to wrap. What it means to wrap. He asked the question in the Gemara, if an embryo on the way out of the womb becomes wrapped up in a cloth by the doula, the one who's assisting the birth, is it still a firstborn? Because it didn't come out all the way yet, and it didn't come out the way it normally comes out. And the Lessons in Tanya explains, and it's brought in the Gemara, that because of his insistence on asking these really, but I'm smiling now because they considered that, what kind of question is that? That's not going to happen. It never happens. They actually threw him out of the Beis Midrash. He was reinstated because of this flip, because of his incisiveness, but he was thrown out because he was asking questions that, what? It's not going to happen. Says that's brought apparently in Perek Daled, the Gemara Hulin. He is a Chochmah law, but it's part of the Torah. If it weren't part of the Torah, it wouldn't be in the Gemara. And if it's part of the Torah, if it's part of God's Chochmah, whether it's going to be materialized on this plane or just in a spiritual plane, just on a spiritual plane, it's part of Torah. It's part of Chochmah Elah. The Bichin is Ein Sof, and God's Chochmah Elah is infinite. The fact that it doesn't materialize down here in something tangible is not an indication that it doesn't have any true existence. It has a very deep true existence in spirituality, even though it's not malubish boba poel mamish. It's not, that chokhmah is not enclosed in actual fact down here below. B'chol prat halacha, and every detail of halacha, hushar hanimshach mechokhmah Allah, is a gate which is drawn from the supernal chokhmah, the Yesod Barata, and it says Zohar, chokhmah Yesod Barata. The father is the foundation of the daughter, and meaning that God's chokhmah is mislabish always in malchus, and malchus is usually the next step down to the next world, but not necessarily. It is in the spiritual, but it not necessarily does everything which is in God's head become actualized. You could say just like ourselves, not everything we think about we put into action. And sometimes it's better that way, right? And sometimes it's not. Okay, so everything is there, and that's the idea of Chokhmah is the foundation of the daughter, which is Malchus. And the Chokhmah Elah, the supernal Chokhmah, is always enclosed in Malchus, but it doesn't necessarily come down into the physical. But normally in the Seder Stalshalis, this Chokhmah invested in Malchus of Atzilus comes down invested in Chokhmah of Bria and the Yisira and Asiya. Benaida, as it's known, the Yud Spiris the Kedusha. As it's known, the sustenance of the klippas, of the backside of the klippas of the Yud Spiris of holiness, they become the husk, the covering of the light as it comes down and down. But we're proud in the Yud Spiris of the Biyah, and specifically the Yud Spiris of the lower worlds. But we're proud the Yatsia, and as it comes down, normally it gets thicker and thicker and thicker, Yatsia and Asiya, and it gets instantiated down here below in something physical. Hamurovim Beklippas, and in this world, the lower it gets, the more there's a mixture of the klippas. And as is known, that the klippas get their life from the garments, from the darkness. The thicker the thin, the thicker the skin, the thicker the husk, the more the klippa has to suck from. This is a long piece, huh? What time is it? Anyway, we're pushing on here. I'm taking a breath, so let you take a breath. Anything you want to say at this point? Halachas. Through learning halachas b'dibur machshavah in speech and action, mispartim there gets enumerated, detailed, umispardim, and separated out mikadusha, so that now the process of this is called. Now we're beginning the discussion of the process of birurim. That even by learning the halachah, to know the halachas starts to make clear what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And what you shouldn't do are the husks, whether it's klippas, gimel klippas atameus, or the klippas noiga. You leave them behind. Or better than that, you extract the light of tohu that's within them, as we've spoken about earlier. So that's the separation. The Mishakazah B'Tikunim is written in the Zohar, that's the word to separate. Separating out the light from the darkness. Or, as we'll say later, sweetening the darkness. Sweetening the Gevuras. Mahainus is known, it's known what is said. Al Shalei Borcho B'Torah Techila. We were exiled from our land, and the Gemara says the reason we were exiled from our land because we didn't bless the Torah B'Techila. We didn't bless in the Torah at the beginning. Now, what does that mean? It means that we've explained, the Alter Rebbe has explained, that the word borach, and this is a gavalt thing to meditate upon every day because we say bruchas all the time. Bracha means to bring down. From one of the languages that it's equated to is the knee, berach, to bend down. We say bruchas, but do we say them with kavanah? So they said bruchas, but they didn't have the kavanah to bring down the hashpah of halakus into. And as a result of that, we were exiled from our land. So we see the masa alone is not necessarily sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. Because the borach in the brucha, borach, bend down, come down, brings down the drawings down of the Or Ein Sof, bichochma elah, at first into the supernal chochma, hamalubish behen, which is in which it gets enclosed, which the Or Ein Sof, the ayin, gets clothed in the yesh at the first point of the intersection is chochma. Uba chochma is beriru, and that's why it says chochma is I'm putting in other words, is the beginning of the rectification, the birur of the Or Ein Sof, Shabo, of the infinite light which is within it. And this drawing down starts in the image of the supernal man up above. the supernal man, the supernal man, the supernal human, the supernal Jew, the image of the 10 spheros as they exist as spheros, before they come way down and get embodied in our physical body, there's a connection all the way down. And our intentionality touches the source of that connection and brings it down so that it enlivens all the limbs and organs of the body, the 248 limbs and organs of the body, and comes down through our occupation, first in the limud, the learning of halachas. And that causes that beginning of descent, lamaila, b'shorshoi, in the root. Where's the root of it? The root, the proximate root of that source is nukfa de zod de biyah, the malchus of every world. The malchus of every world becomes the crown and the infusion into chachma of the world below. And this will be understood, Chiyav Kol Naran, the obligation that every soul, nefesh, ruach, and neshama has, lahashnim kol hatariag mitzvahs, to complete all 613 mitzvahs, b'machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh, thought, speech, and deed, shehein pirti halachas, and these are all the details of the halachas, the sirichas lo b'gilgal, and every person has to come into a reincarnation. We've mentioned this, he's mentioned this quite a few times before. Lahashlim HaTorah, to complete the Torah, bipardes, not only, and this is the key thing for this, what we're learning here, not only in deed, but in the other three levels of the Torah. In Pshat, that's the lowest level. Drush, the interpreter of Remez, Besoid. Every soul, this is the first time I think he said this. Before he said we all have to come down to do the mitzvahs, but not just to do them, but to do them at all these levels, which include all the kavanas and all the secrets. Tall order, right? But we're all going to be back here, and maybe we're part of that. We're certainly part of that incarnation, and that's why at a certain level in time, Hasidus and Kabbalah has been revealed to all of us, to the masses, so that we can fulfill mitzvahs not only in deed, but as we're doing now, by a connection connecting the deed to the inner dimension of what it's really all about, which is to arouse from below in order to bring waters from above, in order to complete the circle of being, which ultimately results in God's dwelling down here below. So every one of us have to do that. In order to rectify all the things that need rectification, and everything which touches any aspect of that. What are we rectifying? This we've spoken about before. We're rectifying all the 288 sparks of Tohu, and that will make us fully human. When all the sparks of Tohu, which fell down, are rectified and released and shine, and we live with this combination of being bodies that are illuminated by the light that initially called all the sparks to fall down, but there is a rectification, meaning, as the Rebbe always has said in his beautiful language, the Horus of Tohu should be in the Kelim of Tikkun, that the lights of the deepest levels of Hashem should be invested in us, in our thought, speech, and action. Halavai. And when he says invested, it means in the 613 general and specific aspects of ourselves. Now, here's a point, and this relates to something which we spoke about the last time. What about in the future, when all the birurim are over, the future which is now? When the birurim are all completed, what will be the purpose of mitzvahs then? We'll be doing mitzvahs, but only in the manner of asik toiv. And now that doesn't mean the negative commandments won't exist, as we'll see, but we're doing them in a manner of asik toiv, levad, meaning what? To elevate the spark. Remember, there's two expressions, one characterizing the time of Birurim, and one characterizing after the Birurim have been done, which we say, Levada Birurim, that's the time of bringing clarification. And the next level after that is Leyachad Yehudim, to create higher and higher unities, to bring both the positive and the negative to that place where they originated in the first place, which is a state of unity, and to be able to perceive that unity in all 365, right? Tariag, which 248, right? So, excuse me, in all 613, you have 248 and 365, positive and negative, all become in the service of the Yachad Yehudim, as he's going to not really explain, but touch upon right now. That in the future, the whole purpose will be la'alas, to rectify, to elevate the Yachad Yehudim, all aspects of ourselves, maila maila, higher and higher, ad ein sof, until the infinite. And also the 365 negatives, they will go back to their shorsha, their root, lamaila. And where is the root? The gevuras hakadoshis, in the power of tohu, the gevuras of tohu. They'll go back. He doesn't say tohu, but gevuras kadushis, in the holy gevuras, the holy empowered, the holy strengths. Ulhamtikon bichasodim, and will be the gevuras, which now are the negatives, the right, 365 gevuras, contractedness, but the contractedness, again on the principle that the end is wedged, the beginning is wedged in the end, the contractedness will reveal its higher state in the world of Tohu, and that's called sweetening the gevuras, lahamtikon, b'chasodim, through the chasodim. By doing the mitzvahs, the negatives will itself be sweetened, b'ramach mitzvahs aseh, through the 248 positive mitzvahs, le'kalon yachad, and the 248 and the 365 will be united together, and we will see and live with the experience of that singularity, that point of Elokus, from which now two sides emerge. But the rivers, to use this example, this is a good metaphor from there was a singular river, right, in Bereshis, and it spread out to four. The four will reveal their singular source. The Alkain, HaTorah Kulo Nitzchis, and therefore the entire Torah, positive and negative, at this are all eternal. Beklalis ubepratis, in their generality and in their specificity. Shegan piti halachas, even all the details of halachas, the shesaloises say, of the 365 negatives, hein anfim mehaklalis, they're all just branches of something singular. The yesh lakulim shorish lamayla, and all of them, the negative as well as the positive, all have a singular source up above. The He Gevuras the Kedusha, in the 5 Gevuras of Kedusha. Now we're talking the power of Gevura. This is called sweetening the Gevuras. The Mesha Saloisa say Atzman, and they are embodied in the 365 negative mitzvahs. Shehein Lamaila, because now he uses a very interesting mashal. If the body, right, the body, call the body the kalim, right? The body is a vessel for the soul, right? And the body has tariag. It has 248 and 365, the whole body. That's the kalim, the kalim. So the 360, 248 and the 365 will all be included. Well, that's not good. They'll all be brought to their singular source above. Bechinas hadam. The dam, right? It says hadam hu hanefesh. The blood is red. Red is Gevurah. Red is Edom. This is the rectification of Esau that we're speaking about in our Parsha, because it goes really back to last week's Parsha, Parsha's Toildos. What did Yitzhak see in Esau? He saw the potential for the revelation of the highest, deepest, and most fiery fire of godliness. That's the sparks of Tohu when they're reconstituted in their source. And that's Adam Hu HaNefesh. That's the soul of everything. Those are the Gevuras. And the blood, the Gevuras, think about this, is what's enlivening all the limbs and organs. The limbs and organs are the 248, Ramach. And the blood is the Shesah. The blood is what enlivens the organs. So the blood, the negative, will reveal their higher source, which is the Kalim of Zoh. The limbs, the 248 limbs of the Kalim of Zoh. So if anybody asks you what's going to happen with mitzvahs in the future when, as we start progressing through the era of finishing the Berurim, now you know the answer. Right? Well, that was a mouthful. Okay, we've got to have some questions on this one. Yeah? No? Well, it's good everybody.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, first of all these teachings make me realize how much impact my thought, speech, and action have, which is
Great.
the idea of a human being so powerful. And then I wonder if why maybe the Hasidic teachings were so, I guess, initially not
Hidden?
accepted or trying to, or people, yeah. And even when they came around, right, the Hasidic masters were like
Yeah.
exiled by others. Is it because they were afraid to let people know this power, that we have such a power? I mean, it's.
Well,
I
I can
like the.
answer that. I can answer that. This is just last week, I learning something from Rabbi Ginsburg. And in this little piece, he talks about Yitzhak being a well digger, right? That itself is a metaphor for this. He took the chesed that Avram put out in the world, which the Plishtim covered over, right? So all the truth of godliness was covered over, and the Plishtim now had the market on what people thought to be true. Similar today. You know, I'm going to digress just a little bit. I think I've reminded us that when it comes to the flood, Hashem decides to bring a flood because the earth was full of Hamas. And Rashi touches it from the Gemara. Hamas means to steal. So they stole the narrative. The narrative that the world has is the narrative opposite the narrative of Torah. Right? Comes along Yitzchak, and he digs it up. So digs it up is the process of revealing it. But the Rabbi Ginsburg points out there are three wells, and I won't go through the discussion, but each of the three wells, he says, corresponds to a state of coming up with a new innovation, which is what your question is about. Why this so-called new innovation, which was a revelation of Panemius Torah. So he said the first well is called struggle. Its name is Esek. That's the first well, and it cognates to a word which means struggle. And you struggle because the world has a story, right? Look how difficult it is today to get through the stolen story of reality that this land belongs to us. Look here, look in the Bible, look in Genesis, this part, and you see that's not the story. Even though it's true, the world can't accept that yet. Soon. And because there's a struggle going on. And Yitzhak is struggling to get this. So the early Hasidim, they had a struggle to go against the narrative that was the narrative of classical traditional Jewish observance. The next stage, once you get there, is it's interesting. The next well is connected to hatred. Once you get that struggle clear in your mind and you come out and you tell that story, the world it creates dissonance, cognitive dissonance. It can't be accepted yet. It has to be. There's a time period by which this thing has to sort of be drawn into the pores of everyone's mind, and people begin to say, "Aha!" And once the people begin to, it takes time. And once people, then the third well is connected with acceptance. So it's an interesting thing, because I think if any of you who are involved with creating something new from scratch, a new program, a new approach, whatever it is, even if you're creating a poem, let's say, there's an internal struggle often to get it just right. And when you get it just right, it begins to set. So I'm sorry that I digress so much, but that I think is the answer. the narrative of Yiddishkeit was X, and now comes a new narrative, and it in many cases seems to contradict. In many cases seems to contradict, because the mitzvahs, the Baal Shem Tov looked and he said, mitzvahs, they're all doing mitzvahs. They're from people, but they're not lifting them. They're not lifting the mitzvahs to the source. We need geula, right? Mitzvahs without kavanah is like a body without a soul, and we need a soul. But that was not the habit of these folks, so it had to be worked on. End of my soapbox. Does that address it? To me, it does. They had no eyes to see because they were blinded by the light of Torah and mitzvahs, the doing of it, the simple doing of it.
I can kind of take it differently, not differently from you, but I see so many people that like they're sitting home and they're kind of like mired in the situation now and watching the news and what's going on. And I was talking to my kids who are shluchim, and they're like, this is the time to do pa'ulas and bring Mashiach.
You get it, you bet it.
And I can't, like it's hard. We're trying to start something new. I couldn't get people to help me because they're so busy sitting at home watching the news and depressed about the evil.
They're in their comfort zone, and and I mean, and then there's an amazing thing that I'm noticing also. It's been the same kind. The Jewish people are called Rahmanim. Our major characteristic is we are merciful, and so we're very merciful. I mean, can you imagine being a parent of one of those hostages? Of course you want your kid back. I mean, you're going to say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice my children for the sake of their geula. It's not so easy.
No.
Not so easy. And it's much more comfortable to sit home watching, my Mildred, we're coming back to peace. Or Yitzhak, maybe make that trip to Israel after all. Our tour, our tour may be rectified by this peacemaking that's going on over there. And that's what that's their life. That's their habit. Just like when I was speaking to Sarah here, that was the habit of Klal Yisrael, to see Yiddishkeit in a certain way. The whole idea of seeing it as a revolution in creation, intended by God in the first place, that's a new idea, gosh.
Right. That's the mind shift, to say that this is coming from Hashem. Yes, it's pure evil, but we have to figure out how to counter that evil. And bring more light in the world. I
mean, I'm kind of amazed. I've mentioned this to other people, but they think I'm whatever. We're supposed, they accuse the Jewish people in America of being the owners of the media, right? Hollywood, but that's an old story. Hollywood, Hollywood isn't the media anymore. I mean, but the media is the internet and the world and the web, et cetera, et cetera. We are masters of creating messaging, advertising. Why can't we muster a propaganda, and I'll use that word because that's what they're, a propaganda machine that just rolls over the lie?
Right.
Why can't we? Why don't we? Why don't I? Why don't you? I don't know, it's up to each one of us. Frustrating.
Can I give my vote? I mean, I think
of course you can give a vote.
You had a poll at the beginning, so I think the real question is, do you want to continue? My vote is to continue live.
My answer to that is, I want to continue if people want to continue. If people say, hey, you're right, we have to learn the Tanya every year, at the beginning. And now you've recorded your shirim. Thank you very much, Rabbi Kamen. And there's 100 other Tanya shir. I mean, I got into the habit now of getting up in the morning, so I'll replay. Okay, if that's what you want to do, fine. I want to do what you people want to do. I know I got your vote, but I want to see, and the reason I want to take a poll is partially because I want to get the poll and I want to see if we're going to do it again, are there other people out there who want to enlist and add to the scene here and be part of the conversation? That was my sort of secondary to use it as a way to see if we can add people to the live chat. But the part of me says no, which is like, well, it's there. What am I going to add next year? Me, meaning the teacher. But no, it's up to you. Yeah, it's all up to you.
I don't know how many people know about it, Avi,
right. I know. So I'll use this as an opportunity to make it more known by putting the poll in the chat. At least everybody will be aware that we're contemplating doing this again. And would you like to? And especially those who have been here already, do you want to do it again live? Or, you're happy that we've done what we've done, and now there's more curriculum, more classes out there because we did what we did. Okay, but we'll find out. So that's my answer. I want to do what you guys want to do.
We want to do it again. Yeah.
It was we. Who was that?
Akiva and Elisheva.
Akiva and Elisheva. Okay.
Yes, I would like to as well, and I'll send out some invites as well.
Okay, I'm fine. If that where it goes, I'm fine. Because it's discipline for me also. To get up and do it and to chazer it again in a way that I know I have to give it over. That's very different than just opening it up. I could get up at 6:30 in the morning and learn my chitas. It would give me more time actually. I wouldn't be having to explain it. I just go through it, and I'll create new time for myself to now I can do my Rambam and my Chumash because I'll use the time that way. But no, it's really about I'm doing this because there's something in it in doing it with other people together that's just different than doing it by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it differs every day also because of what's ever going on in the world and with people.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, so I'll put the poll
we appreciate your Mesiras Nefesh.
Okay. But again, notice that the part of the Mesiras Nefesh is about me too, because I enjoy it. I enjoy the back and forth and the discussion, and the chidushim. We've actually come out with chidushim, points to new ways of looking at things, which are very, very helpful. Yeah. All right, but I think I don't even have the time in front of me. My watch is in the show.
8:19.
8:19. Time to go. Mir Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck, everybody.
Good vach.
Good day.